Andy Warhol once said, "Art is what you can get away with." And if you've ever worked in advertising, especially as a creative, you know exactly what that means to you. We've all had those ideas, the ones that make your heart race a little, the ones that feel too wild, too risky, too impossible or scary to present to a client, the ones where you think, there is no way they're gonna say yes to this. And honestly, a lot of the time, they won't. Bold ideas get killed every single day. But there are some creatives out there who are consistently getting their wildest ideas approved, and they're approaching things a little differently. They don't treat the creative process like a battle to be won. They don't see clients as obstacles to overcome. Instead, they treat their clients like partners in crime. I'm Ashley Rutstein. Let's get into some stuff about advertising. Today we're talking about the art of creative conspiracy. To dig into this, I talked to Chris Colliton, who recently became the executive creative director at Zulu Alpha Kilo, or ZAC, New York, after spending over a decade at Droga 5. Chris has made a career out of getting clients to say yes to ideas that should have felt impossible, like convincing Tourism Australia to fund a fake Hollywood movie, or creating the first Super Bowl ad you could actually bet on. Chris's work is certainly impressive. The fake Crocodile Dundee movie is one of my favorite Super Bowl campaigns ever. I've talked about it in a previous podcast episode. But I wanted to know more about the behind the scenes of creating wild ideas like this, and of course, getting them sold. It's really about shifting how we think about the client-agency relationship. Because most agencies, like I said, approach client approval like a battle. It's us versus them. Creatives versus suit. Art versus commerce. But that dynamic certainly doesn't foster an environment where wild ideas like that can thrive. So what does it actually look like when wild ideas do get through? Chris describes it as a feeling of getting away with something. First, just tell me what you mean by that. Like, what does an idea feel like if you're getting away with it? Like, what sorts of ideas make you feel like you want to give your best mad scientist laugh?
To me, it's like when I have that feeling that like, I can't believe I'm getting to make this. I have a feeling like this idea could die at any second and I would be heartbroken. That's when I know it's something. Like, I can't believe I'm actually getting to make this thing. It feels so ambitious. It feels different. It's also incredibly scary. The ideas that are really scary because they haven't been done before, or they sound outlandish when you say them, but you just feel like, oh, if I could just make them, it'll be so amazing. It always, if they make me feel that way, I'm like, this has a chance to be really special.
That feeling that Chris is describing, I think most creatives certainly know it. But usually those ideas never see the light of day, if they even get past your creative director in the first place. So I wanted to hear about times when they actually did. His first example was a campaign that required a huge leap of faith, letting a sausage company's employees write their own commercials. With no guarantees they'd come up with anything usable.
One of the first that I really love was we did this campaign for Johnsonville sausage called Made the Johnsonville Way, where their employees are responsible for everything there. It's like a really big sausage cult in Wisconsin. But the idea was we would let them come up with the commercials too. And we pitched this idea. Like, I wrote some commercials like, oh, what if they sounded something like this? But it was all real. And so we're like, we need to go out there and we need to interview 100 people who work there and just say, what do you think the craziest sausage commercial you could make was? And we didn't know if that was going to work, And so it was a terrifying thing to pitch, but also you knew it could be so special if you got it right. And it was like one of the most amazing, chaotic 3 days I've ever spent in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. But yeah, it was like, oh, it is crazy that they let us do that. And they entrusted us to do that. But we knew from the get-go that it was going to be special if they just gave us a chance to do it.
Straighten everything out. All right. In my Johnsonville commercial, we open with a car chase. You can see all the cars. There's lots of drama. There's semis. You got a couple of bikers in there and sports cars. And you got regular cars. You got grandmas on scooters. You got the ice cream truck driving over mailboxes. There's a news reporter down there, and she's going blah, 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 big car chase. You make it look like, Action 2 News on the bottom and breaking story or something. And as soon as you get all this drama built up, you realize they're chasing the Johnsonville Big Taste Grill. Actually, it probably shouldn't be a super high-speed chase for safety and stuff. They're blocking up traffic and they're causing a mess. So finally, the driver realizes all the chaos and commotion behind him, turns to the guy next to him and says, "Did you leave the brats on the grill again?" And he goes, "Yep." "The grillers too?" "Yep." Might as well put them to good use. They get out of the truck and they open up the thing. "Come get them, they're all ready." I guess I don't know how it ends. Maybe everybody just ends up eating sausage together. It could be an explosion, maybe. And that's a Grillers commercial made the Johnsonville way.
Like I said, Chris also worked on one of my favorite Super Bowl teaser campaigns for Tourism Australia. They created a movie trailer to promote this new Crocodile Dundee movie with Danny McBride and Chris Hemsworth and marketed it like it was a real film that was coming to theaters. And then they revealed during the Super Bowl that the whole thing was just a tourism ad.
I did a campaign for Tourism Australia where we made a whole fake Crocodile Dundee movie. And we're going to convince the world this is a real movie, and then reveal during the Super Bowl that it's all a tourism campaign in disguise.
I actually talked about that in a previous podcast episode. I did an episode about Super Bowl teasers and good ones and bad ones, and that was a good one for sure.
That was a good one? Okay.
Absolutely.
That was one of the bad ones. But that was another one too, where it was like, the first comp of Danny McBride as the son of Crocodile Dundee, it just made you laugh and this would be so amazing. Like, could we actually do this? And the whole time we were shooting it, I was like, I can't believe we're actually getting to do this. And then we cut it and we put it out in the world. And then it was like, I cannot believe everybody is going crazy for this thing. They think it's actually a real movie. And then the payoff hit just the way we wanted it to. But the entire process, I was like, this is going to die. One lawyer is going to see this and be like, no, this is over. Like, haha, we all had a good run at this. But it's, that's how those are the ones like, I can't let this not happen.
Both of those campaigns sound like classic examples of ideas that would make clients nervous. Most clients would have shot those big risky ideas down and retreated to safer territory. So what was different?
They're not risky for risky's sake. There is a true insight to them, or there is something really, really smart behind them. And so while they are scary, because a lot of times I think ideas like this are really scary because there's not a playbook, they are rooted in something that's really smart or really true or really insightful. So buying them isn't impossible for the client to do. And I think that's part of the challenge that we're faced with, is when you think of something like this, or you're pitching something like this, it's how do I also make it really buyable? Because it shouldn't just feel scary for scary's sake or impossible for impossible's sake. It has to be rooted in something that would be really good for them or really true for them.
This cuts to the heart of it. These ideas aren't intimidating because they're reckless. They're intimidating because they are uncharted territory. But when they're built on something genuine about the brand, that unfamiliarity becomes their power. I love the differentiation between scary and risky, because something could be risky for one brand but makes so much sense for another. Like, I think of Liquid Death's ideas. Those are pretty risky for any other brand to do, but for them, it's not a risk. It could be scary, but it's not a risk for them. It makes total sense for their brand. So if you can root it in something like an insight or something that just feels so ingrained with the brand, it's not truly a risk to take.
right. The riskiest thing is doing something that nobody cares about. Right. Honestly, that's a risk. Do something that is like more white noise or more of the same. I think you got to take swings. You got to be bold. Like, and I think that makes people uncomfortable, but that ultimately the risky thing would be not doing it, because you're going to work hard no matter what the idea is. It might as well have a chance to really be great.
The question is, do these approaches actually work better than playing it safe? The answer is almost always a big ol' yes, but also almost always not the kind of risk that leads to shock value or true problematic controversy. Instead, these bold ideas make people care about a brand in a way that a lot of advertising just doesn't. People are so used to ads that feel calculated and overly focus grouped that when something comes up that does feel very real and creative or spontaneous or innovative, it really cuts through the noise. People share those ads, they talk about them, and most importantly, they don't actually feel like they're being advertised to with things like that. When an idea feels so creative and so right for the brand and so perfect for its audience, there's this psychological shift. It doesn't feel like an ad. It doesn't feel forced.
That's the thing, is they work. I think you talk about Liquid Death, like I'm sure 99% of brands would be like, okay, everything Liquid Death does is terrifying. But then all those same brands are like, we're so jealous of Liquid Death. Like they're constantly being talked about. They're constantly being brought into culture. And I think if you can actually commit to it, like the payoffs are tenfold. The thing about these ideas is people start to care about your brand versus deciding if they like an ad or not. It's because people don't really like advertising. That's kind of the biggest problem with most advertising out there. And so they turn off. But if you can almost make them think, oh, I just love what is doing, what this piece of content is, what this idea is, then they'll love your brand, they'll buy your brand, and they'll pay off. And I've seen it all the times where people really commit and go for it. It does amazing things for their brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like from what I've seen on social media, a lot of people don't clock good ads as ads. It's like they just don't consider it advertising. If it is super entertaining and interesting and engaging, it's just like a different part of their brains that it's activating. And because I see people all the time who are like, I hate advertising. I hate advertising. And those same people are like, oh my God, I love when this brand did this thing on TikTok the other day. Like that's advertising, but they just don't think of it that way.
That's the trick. And I think that's also the future of like where things are going, because people pay tons of money to avoid advertising, like ad blockers, or I want to pay for the premium membership because it's ad free and all these things. But then people end up also loving and sharing the TikToks or seeing a really hilarious video that, they think is funny just because it's funny or it's entertaining. And then it's like, oh, wait, this is a branded thing. And there's marketing behind this. And I think if we embrace that, and brands aren't afraid to embrace that and embrace like the content piece of it, the entertainment piece of it, you end up actually making people care, because people are kind of programmed to not care.
Of course, all of this theory breaks down if you can't actually get clients to say yes to these ideas in the first place. That's where things can get pretty tricky. So I want to talk about the clients, because I feel like they are obviously a huge piece of the puzzle, because people can have ideas like this all the time, but can you sell them? Is a client going to be okay with actually making it? So how do you decide or try to tell if a client would be open to some sort of crazy idea like that?
That is the trickiest part of the equation. And a lot of times you need the right client and the right brand and the right ideas, and it all syncs up perfectly. But with that said, I think making the ideas not just seem crazy, but really smart makes it a much easier thing to buy. The case studies that we've talked about, like making your brand famous, making your brand break into culture, I think almost any client wants that, and in their heart of heart wants it. They get lost in the details of like this thing or that thing or what that boss is going to think or this direction of the company. But if it's a good business move to do it, that just has to be kind of spelled out for them. But if you find a client who's ambitious and wants to do work like that, you also have to jump at the opportunity.
When pitching these kinds of bold ideas, most agencies go in trying to convince the client that their wild concept is worth the risk. But that framing is already setting up this sort of adversarial dynamic. You're asking clients to overcome their natural instincts for self-preservation. And for many clients, that instinct is incredibly strong. But instead of asking clients to take a giant leap of faith, what if we make them feel like it's not a leap at all? Chris says you need genuine confidence that you can pull off whatever you're proposing, and yes, you need an actual plan of how you're going to accomplish it.
Well, I think you have to be a good salesperson. But I think you have to think it through. I think it can't be something that is such a what if or such a, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if we did this thing? You actually have to have a belief that you could pull it off and a plan to be able to pull it off. I was working on Molson Coors, Miller Lite and Coors Light, and we wanted to make the first ad you could bet on for the Super Bowl. And it was, and that had never been done. And also like there's so many laws around gambling and this type of thing. But again, it was rooted in something really, really smart that like sports gambling was at an all-time high. People were betting on The Bachelor and presidential elections and all these types of things. So the moment was so right, but like no one had ever done a piece of advertising in the big game that people could bet money on. And so there was like so many things to figure out, and having the confidence that you can do that, but also taking a step back and being like, look, we're going into uncharted waters. Let's hold hands on this. There's a lot of confidence that can come from that. Like we are going to figure it out together. And in the case of the high stakes beer ad, we ended up finding a great partner in DraftKings who helped us pull it off. And then there was 3 people who knew what happened in the ad at the end of the day. And I had to sign 4,000 NDAs and things. But yeah, it was crazy. And every step of the way, the lawyers were knocking on the doors being like, I don't know if you can do this, or you can't use that word, or you can't do this thing. But I think there's a level of belief and perseverance that really, they really made it happen.
Most agency-client relationships are built on this weird power dynamic where the agency is supposed to be the expert with all the answers, and the client is supposed to evaluate whether those answers are good enough. But that dynamic is broken from the start, especially for these kinds of innovative ideas. Because how can a client properly evaluate something that has never been done before? They can't. There's no data, there's no case studies that prove this thing is gonna work because it hasn't existed yet. So instead of putting your client in the position of having to judge this wild idea, why don't you put them in the position of co-creating it? It's not a matter of, trust us, we know what we're doing. It's, we're doing this together, and your expertise about your brand is just as crucial as our expertise about the creative. That's the conspiracy mindset. You're making your client your partner in crime and doing something that neither of you could have created alone.
Then we're all on the same page. That's what I always try to remind everybody when, especially in the toughest times, we all want the same thing. We want this thing, this idea to be great. We want it to shake up the industry. We want to make the brand famous. We want everybody here to feel like they were a part of doing something awesome.
This approach only works if you actually have ideas worth conspiring over, though, and that's where a lot of creative teams get stuck. Not because they lack talent, but because they've learned to censor themselves before they've even started. That voice in your head that says, this is too crazy, or they're never gonna go for that, that voice kills more good ideas than any nervous client ever could. For people that struggle to come up with ideas like this, like I think I have always personally had a very strong self-filter when I'm concepting, which is it can be a detriment for sure. It can help sometimes too, but it does prevent me from thinking in these big blue sky, no guardrails sort of zones. So what would you tell someone who is struggling to come up with these sorts of big ideas? Like, what can they do to encourage their brain to think in this way?
I think, for one, advertising and creative especially is like such a vulnerable thing. Like you're putting a fledgling of an idea out in a meeting, or even if you're just with your creative partner or you're with your creative director or whoever, it's something in its like infancy stage, and it's terrifying to see what people are going to say or how they're going to react. And make sure you're working with people who feels like it's a safe place for ideas like that and thinking like that. But one thing that I heard once that's always stuck with me is, how can you put like two totally different types of things together? Because if you put two radically different inputs in, you're going to get something interesting. We keep going back to these examples, but it's like, okay, what if it was like the lens of a movie in a Hollywood production, all these things, but we match that with the world of tourism? There's an interesting output happen. Or same thing with like, there's all these tropes and things about gambling and crazy things that people are betting on. What if we took that and applied it to a beer ad? And I think putting two entirely different inputs together inherently makes it interesting. Another example, I did this campaign for Fanta, where we took all of these really silly internet videos that people were making, like famous YouTube videos of people doing stupid things, and we treated them like they were Nike superstars. Like this was the greatest, and like the training and all the things that went in, it was like felt dark and gritty for like the stupidest internet video payoff. And it's like, oh, these two worlds together can make something really interesting. And so that's whenever I'm stuck or trying to think, it's like, well, what's like the last thing a brand like this would do? The last place you'd expect a sports brand to be, or, and then you can get to really interesting places.
Mm-hmm. And then you're taking these kind of built-in audiences for both of those things too, and mashing them together.
Exactly. Like you're making like people who never would have cared about Miller Lite or Coors Light or anything, but are like really obsessed with DraftKings in the world. Like you kind of get that audience, and same thing with like this Fanta thing. You get people who are so invested in the world of sport, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm now seeing people just having fun making crazy TikToks and Instagram videos, and that like it opens your eyes into what an entirely different part of the culture is talking about. Mm-hmm. And usually it just gets you somewhere like really interesting and really fresh.
Agency culture has a huge hand in letting ideas like this actually flourish. You need to be in an environment where boundary pushing is encouraged and celebrated, and vulnerability is welcomed. And when Chris talks about his move to Zach, New York, you definitely get the sense that that rings true for them.
I'm definitely bringing that, or I'm embracing that like feisty, independent spirit. I think it's a small crew of really ambitious people here who want to do really great work. And I think that's the most exciting time to be at any agency. And I've worked at places that were really small and ones that were really big. And what I love so much about this place is just feeling like you're on the same team, on the same page with everyone here. Like we live together, we die together. Like we're all in this thing together, and we know we're all marching towards the same awesome thing. One of the things that I know is core to all of Zulu Alpha Kilo is fighting sameness. The thing I was saying is like, people don't want to just do the same old, same old. You come here because I want to do different. I want to do new. I want to do exciting, which obviously is the whole core of what I was saying, the work I really love. But I think that is really special to find a place like that has that type of culture. But also what I want to bring here is I want to bring a belief that we can do anything. I want to bring in more creative POVs, different types of thinking, things that make me better, like I think will make the agency better and ultimately better work for our clients is just being lots of different types of creatives, people who can push me and I can help build on their work. And I think there's certainly an art, like I was saying, to making the unconventional happen. And I want to help that here. And I think we really can too, because there's so much good momentum and so many great people that it's exciting to see what's next. And then what comes after that, I want to be a totally new, exciting thing that people didn't see coming as well.
So I have one final question for you. It's super important. I think a lot of people are very curious. What the hell does an ECD do all day?
Just do podcasts all day.
I knew it.
I love being involved in the work. I love being able to help teams not only like crack ideas, but believe in them, figure out how to sell them, and then be a part of making them grow and building a place that grows. So like especially in ECD at a small place, like there's a lot of, on the one hand, you're doing the whole client thing, balancing the client relationship, setting them up, making them ready to buy great work, which I think you were asking about earlier. That's a whole big part of it. Then there's, how do I create an environment for my creatives to thrive? And I think it's definitely giving a ton of ownership, giving a lot of autonomy, but also really helping make their ideas better and buyable. Because at the end of the day, if the client can't buy it, then that's how the great things never end up happening. So that stuff, and then podcasts.
Mystery solved. After talking with Chris, I keep coming back to this shift in how we think about the client-agency relationship. Most of us have been trained to see clients as gatekeepers, people we need to convince, persuade, win over, schmooze even. But that dynamic sets everyone up for failure or just safe ideas. Clients feel like they're being sold something, and agencies feel like they're fighting this uphill battle of trying to win them over. This conspiracy approach flips that entirely. When clients become your partners in crime, you can get away with so much more.
It's hard to remember this sometimes, but I do really feel like we're incredibly lucky to do what we get to do. And then when you're feeling like really frustrated or burned out or that everything sucks, remind yourselves that we're so lucky that this thing even exists, and we put work out in the world that never didn't exist before. We wrote it down on a piece of paper, and then all of a sudden it's a real thing in reality, which is a pretty cool thing.
Huge thanks to Chris for chatting with me about what it takes to get bold work made and inspiring us all to conspire to create even more of it. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could leave a rating and a review. It really helps more people find the show. And no matter where you get your podcasts, make sure you are subscribed for more stuff about advertising.